Alright, something that econ professors love to do is give you a news story and have you figure out what happens in the market. So let's take a look at the market for blueberry pancakes. So these are pancakes that have a lot of blueberries baked into them, and they're delicious, especially with jam and chocolate chips. And a news story that comes out, which is a new watering head reduces water lost due to evaporation for shrubberies. So blueberries grow on shrubs, more or less. So let's look at this market. We can start with just a generic supply and demand. Really exactly what shape these take and where they are doesn't matter. All that we care about is the intuition. It's just a model, it's an abstraction anyway, so we're trying to make it as simple as possible and yet still capturing something about reality. So the insight here is which curve is going to be affected and which way that curve is going to shift. So here is this going to affect how much people are willing and able to buy blueberries. Does this make me suddenly desire blueberry pancakes a lot more? Probably not. But as a blueberry pancake maker, suddenly my blueberries are less expensive because less water is going on the blueberries and being wasted. So here that might decrease the cost of suppliers. So that's a supply curve. A lower cost means an increase in the supply curve. It would look like this. And so let's notice what's happened. We went from one equilibrium to another. So we have P1, P2. Our price has dropped. We have Q1 and Q2. Our quantity has increased. So we went from one equilibrium to the other equilibrium. In reality, this doesn't happen instantly, but we think something like this will happen. So generally, more will be sold and at a lower price. So that's how we do this analysis. Let's do some more examples. Let's stick with the same market, so blueberry pancakes, and let's say that something happens to flour. So flour goes into pancake mix. Maybe a tanker carrying a bunch of flour capsizes in the ocean and causes some sort of environmental havoc. But we're not modeling the environment, we're just modeling pancakes. So in this case, who's going to care about that? Suppliers or demanders? That's probably going to affect supply, right? Flour is an input. And there's sort of two ways to interpret this. One is that there's just less flour, there's less available, so the price will go up. Another way to think about it is simply that the price of flour is going to increase and going to increase the cost to suppliers of blueberry pancakes. Let's take a look at that. So here we go from one equilibrium, so Q1, P1, we go to a new equilibrium, Q2, P2. So at this new equilibrium, we see that our quantity has decreased and our price has increased. So that's basically it. Let's now look at some news stories. We've had two supply side shifts. What's going to happen next? Stay tuned. But it's probably going to be demand. Alright, so we're in the market for blueberry pancakes, and suddenly we find out that blueberries are very healthy for you. What's going to happen? Well, as a supplier, I don't really care that blueberries are healthy for the people eating them. That doesn't matter so much to me. But as a buyer and a consumer of blueberry pancakes, it means I'm going to buy more blueberry pancakes. So we're going to go straight to the demand curve. It's going to be an increase in demand. We're going to be willing and able to buy more of the good. It's going to shift us out or to the right. So we have an increase in demand for blueberry pancakes. Let's look what happens to our equilibrium. We go from Q1 and P1 over to Q2, P2. Our price increases and our quantity increases. I wouldn't memorize these, so like with the demand increase, price goes up, quantity goes up. I certainly wouldn't memorize that. Just draw it. If you're doing an exam or if you're like just at a party, go ahead and pull out some paper and just do a quick graph. It only takes a few seconds, and then you know that you have it correct, as opposed to trying to recall it as just. I think it would just be much easier to just graph it really quickly. Alright, so again, we've got some equilibrium. So we've got P1, Q1. And here, what if we find out that blueberry muffins, oh no, scones. So blueberry scones are suddenly less expensive. So if blueberry scones are less expensive, we might think that there's some sort of substitute. So that's going to affect our demand curve. So let's walk through the steps here. So blueberry scones, the price of blueberry scones decreases. That means that the quantity of blueberry scones is going to increase. Well, if people are buying more blueberry scones, they'll probably buy fewer blueberry pancakes. So that means we're going to decrease our demand curve, or shift it to the left. So here we see a decrease in the demand curve. Our new equilibrium quantity, Q2, and equilibrium price, P2. So we see that here we've shifted to a new equilibrium because of the demand curve. People are going to buy fewer blueberry pancakes because blueberry scones, a substitute, is now less expensive.